Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the very first episode on this brand new podcast, Literary Lens. I'm your host, Ziad Ajari, and in today's episode, we're going to be just doing a little bit of a test run to see how all of this works, and we're going to be doing a book review. And the book that I have in front of me today is a brilliant book of fantasy. It's a world of mystery and all round great read. It comes from the dangerous world of Arawiya and I present Hafsah Faizal's enchanting debut, We Hunt the Flame. So for those of you who haven't heard of this book, We Hunt the Flame is a young adult fantasy novel set in a world inspired by an ancient Arabiya. It follows the journey of two main characters, Zafira, who's a legendary hunter disguising herself as a man to feed her people and provide and protect her family, and Nasir, who is a notorious assassin known as the Prince of Death. Scary. So let's start with a brief synopsis. Zafira lives in a world where magic has vanished, leaving behind a desolate and harsh landscape. To save her people, she must embark on a perilous journey to retrieve a lost artifact that could restore magic to her land. Meanwhile, Nasir is sent by his father, the Sultan, to kill Zafira and claim the same artifact for his kingdom. As their paths cross, they discover that their fates are more intertwined than they could have ever imagined. So, it's quite a brilliant synopsis. It's engaging, intriguing, captivating from the get-go. So first off, let's talk about world building. Hafsah Faizal does an incredible job in creating a vivid and an immersive setting. These descriptions of Arawiya are rich and atmospheric. It almost feels like you're in the world, right there alongside the gang, alongside Zafira and Nasir, and it just makes you feel one of the characters, as if you are a character in the story as opposed to just a reader from the outside world. So the intricate details of the culture, the landscapes, the history, of this world are beautifully woven into the narrative, adding depth and complexity to the story. So that's the world building, but let's move on to the characters. Zafira is a strong and determined protagonist who is easy to root for. Her internal struggles as she grapples with her identity and the weight of her responsibilities are portrayed with a great sense of empathy and a nuance. Nasir, on the other hand, is a little bit more complex. I'd say he's mysterious because he has to be. He's been forced to be this stone wall as opposed to Zafira, who's in tune with her emotions, even though she silences it. But Nasir is a little bit more dark because of his past. His soul is darkened by what's happened to him and the expectations that have been placed upon him. But having said that about Nasir, there's a sense of vulnerability to him that makes his journey of self-discovery and redemption rather compelling. So the dynamic between the two main characters, Zafira and Nasir, is one of the highlights of the book. Their relationship evolves from one of mistrust and hostility, and it develops into this deeper understanding and mutual respect between the main characters. And funnily enough, that relationship evolves to such an extent that there's this slow burning romance, beautifully written, but it's just painful to have to wait so long to see something happen to them. But it creates a sense of tension and emotional depth that, as painful as it is, keeps you hooked. So having discussed all of that, I think there's only one more thing that we have to really discuss. So I feel the need that it's important to discuss this type of thing, and it's probably in the writing sense one of the most important things to consider when reviewing somebody. And if you ever find yourself writing your own work, it's something that you too should consider. And this is Hafsah Faizal's writing style. Every writer has one, but hers is a standout element of this book. Her prose is lyrical and evocative, with a poetic quality that just adds an overall magic to the story. is a befitting addition to the whole world that she creates. The pacing is well balanced, with moments of intense action and quieter, character-driven scenes which allow for deeper exploration of themes such as identity, duty, sacrifice, heartbreak. All these things, they come together, and it's as a result, it's a product of her writing style, which is a testament of her brilliance. And I think this is something that I could speak about for ages. As a writer myself, finding your own voice is one of the most difficult things that you can do, because we all have a story to tell, and especially when you are a writer who finds such interest and finds that love for putting ink to paper, as per se, it becomes difficult to find out how exactly you choose to do that. We are exposed to so many different examples of writing, and we kind of have this balance. We want to be something of each, have an aspect of each of the best writers in the world. You want this certain writer's flair, and this writer's master class for this mystery that they have, and the other writer does this and this person does that, and you want to kind of have all of these factors pooled into one book, and it becomes difficult to even remember what you sounded like initially. So I think with her, she kept pretty much true to herself, and she kind of found a way to ensure consistency with her writing. She never ways away from how she tells a story. It's always each chapter sounding a little bit more familiar than the last one, and as you go on, you seem to understand how she sets the pace and what happens. And even though it sounds predictable, but it isn't clustered, it's comfortable, and because it's so comfortable, you have a better time digesting the points that she makes in her books and the way that she tells her tales, even though it can be a little bit challenging to understand some of the ways that she describes, because she does use very descriptive and emotive personification to bring these scenes to life, to make it some sort of a pictured image in your mind. But that's her writing style. It's very seldom do we find dialogue between characters, only where there is utmost necessity. But apart from that, it's just directional conversation, and the rest is just descriptive. It's very descriptive, and that is her writing style. Minimal dialogue with high amounts of description, and having this purpose to bring the scene to life, whether it's describing the heat of the sands of Shah, or the coldness of desert sand, the darkness and how it envelops a person. She's always keeping an element true to a character, and each character defines and describes a specific person in the story, and I think that on its own speaks volumes to how simply she keeps the book going and how consistent she is with her words, because you know exactly what's going to come next, but the way that she describes it just makes it even more beautiful. So it's not overwhelming, it's easy to read, and that's why I have high praise for this book. Nothing but high praise. So I think with a book like this, no reader can go wrong, and I would recommend this to absolutely anyone. Now, for those of you who don't exactly know me, there's one part about the literary world that I absolutely adore, and I think this is going to be a feature on this podcast, where I speak about the symbolism of somebody's work. I love finding the symbolism, and if we take a look at Hafsah Faizal's We Hunt the Flame, she delves into some powerful and thought-provoking ideas, and it explores the concepts of masks. So a mask, which is both seen in the literal and metaphorical sense, the ways in which we hide ourselves from the true world, and it examines the idea of home and belonging, reality from misconception and deception, blindness, hiding away, shying away, concealing your true identity from the world, and it shows us what it means to actually fight for those that you truly love. Now, we see this with Zafira. Obviously, one of the main points, dead giveaway at the beginning of the book, is the way she hides herself under her father's cloak to conceal her gender, because in her world, being a woman puts you at a disadvantage. If she was to show herself, she wouldn't be able to go out and hunt for her family. She wouldn't even have been able to go to this journey on Shah and find the lost artifact to save her people. She wouldn't be given this opportunity, and she would have crumbled under the immense tension in her life, the amount of pressure that she goes through, the level of pain that she's had to endure. She would have crumbled. Hunting was the only thing that her father really left her. It was a skill that she learned from him, and if she couldn't do that, then it would have become difficult to remain true to who Zafira is. And therefore she takes on this guise as a hunter, because she knows that to stay ahead of the pack, being herself wasn't enough. But as the book progresses, Hafsah Faizal shows us that this isn't true, and for as long as you can accept yourself for who you are, then the rest of the world can most likely follow suit. But you have to believe in yourself first, and Zafira learns this through hardship, and after meeting Nasir, and after going through the whole journey through Shah and getting the lost artifact, it becomes a testament to herself. And I think that's a beautiful level of symbolism. It's just accepting who you are for what you are and working with what you have, instead of hiding behind something that you are not and will never be. So you got to be real with yourself, and that's what We Hunt the Flame speaks about as a major theme, and I think that's beautiful. So you've heard everything that there is to know about We Hunt the Flame, and we've discussed the themes, we've discussed the characters, their relationship with one another, the element of relationship between them, and the world building that takes place. But in conclusion, this is what I have to say. We Hunt the Flame is a captivating and beautifully crafted fantasy novel that will transport you to a world of magic, danger, and adventure. Hafsah Faizal has created a story that is both epic in scope and deeply personal, with characters that will stay with you long after you've turned the last page. If you haven't picked up We Hunt the Flame yet, I highly recommend giving it a read. It's a journey you won't want to miss. And ladies and gentlemen, that is all for today's podcast episode of Literary Lens. I'm your host, Yatha Jari. Don't forget to like this wherever you're listening to it, and leave a review if you enjoyed today's discussion. Leave some comments on what I should change and what you think about I should talk about next. Until next time, my dear readers, goodbye.